Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Cambium Networks. Today's host is John Mead, and he is their Vice President of Engineering and Product Development, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and John will be able to answer them at the end of today's presentation. John, thank you so much for being with us today. As usual, Microcom greatly appreciates what you share with us. I am finished for now. Please go ahead and take it on over.
Thank you very much, Julie. Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending. My name is John Mead, and I've been working at Cambium Networks for almost 6 years now. It's gone by very, very fast. I came on board to introduce a new Ethernet switching portfolio, and we've been shipping products for about little over 4 years now. Anyway, I want to give you guys an overview of the portfolio, but mainly what I want to do is to take a look at some of the new switches that we have coming out over the next 12 months. So our new next gen EX3K is the highlight of today, and I'll get to that towards the end of the presentation. So I'm going to do a quick, and I'll make it pretty quick portfolio overview. I do want to highlight a feature that is really working well for us. Our customers love it. It's kind of a differentiating feature for us as compared to our competitors, and that is policy-based automation. I do want to give you guys a real quick update on our accessories. I'll keep that short, but it is important. And then the highlight for today, the fourth item on the agenda, is our roadmap for 2023. And then we can spend as much time as you'd like with Q&A. So our portfolio overview. But before I get into that, before I talk to you guys about our switches, I do want to make it clear and make it obvious that it's not about selling just the switches. It's about selling a complete and comprehensive solution. So yes, we have the switches. I'm going to talk to you about them, and it provides the wired connectivity for your network. But we also have our Wi-Fi portfolio, our Wi-Fi access point portfolio to give you the wireless connectivity. We also have our fixed wireless portfolio, as well as our SD-WAN, our NSC 3000. Now, the last component that kind of ties it all together, maybe the most important component, is our network management platform. This is cnMaestro, and cnMaestro can run either on-premise for you or in the cloud, and it can manage all of your Cambium devices, all of your Cambium products with one pane of glass. So that's the pitch about our overall solution from Cambium. Our products really do play well with one another, and obviously you get all the advantages of buying from one vendor. About our portfolio. So what we did is we have two families of Ethernet switches. If we were to try to do this with one family of switches, we would have had to have made too many compromises, both on price as well as features and functionality. So what I'm showing you right now in the middle of the screen is a kind of a sneak peek at our EX family of switches, our enterprise indoor access switches. So these EX switches, we have two series. We have the EX1K and the EX2K. I'm going to talk more about that later when I introduce the 3K. So anyway, so we have 12 models. We have all the configurations that you would need or want. We have 8-port switches, 24-port switches, 48-port switches. Those all come in PoE versions, which we sell the most of, or non-PoE versions. We also have a switch that has multi-gig support. It's a very, very nice hybrid solution. So it has some 2.5 multi-gig ports, as well as some 1 gig ports as well. It keeps the price way, way down, but it does give you that high bandwidth 2.5 gig for your critical devices, such as your high-end access points. All of these enterprise switches, they have fiber uplinks on them. On the 8-port switches, we have 1 gig fiber uplink. On all of the other switches, we have 10 gig fiber uplink. And you won't see that on the other competitor switches. A lot of them you'll see only 1 gig fiber uplink. So anyway, 10 gig fiber uplinks, I do think it's very important on these enterprise grade switches. So that's our EX family, a quick snapshot view. We also have our TX family of switches, and that's on the right side of the screen. The TX family of switches, we also have 2 series. We have the TX1K and the TX2K. These switches come in 8-port, 16-port, and 24-port modes. All of these switches have 4 10 gig SFP plus fiber uplinks. Even the 8-port switch does. Now, what makes these switches unique or different from the EX family of switches? Well, in these Wisp deployments, so these are the TX switches or tower switches. So for these Wisp deployments, the radios that are going to be connecting into this switch, the Cambium radios, use a Cambium sync signal so that all the radios can synchronize when they send, when they receive, avoid traffic and conflicts, and enables us to use the spectrum and the frequency more effectively and more efficiently. So that Cambium sync signal can be provided by other boxes. There's a CN Pulse that you could buy for all the radios, but that functionality is integrated into our switch. So these TX switches really integrate a lot for you. So it has the Cambium sync capability. It is an L2, L3 enterprise grade non-blocking layer 2, layer 3 switch, and it has all the PoE modes that you might need. Now on our enterprise switches, we support standards-based PoE, which is very, very important, 802.AF, AT, and BT. On these TX switches, we also support non-standard modes of PoE. People refer to these as PoE passive modes. Anyway, a lot of the radios out there don't support standard-based PoE. They support this passive PoE. So we support those modes in these switches also. So you don't need separate boxes for this PoE. You don't need separate PoE injectors. So really these TX switches are great as far as integrating all your needs into one switch. Now, these 2 families of switches use the same code base. In fact, it uses the same binary or the same executable for all these switches. The software will dynamically detect what kind of hardware it's running on and either enable or disable some of the features that I've been talking about. So we developed this hardware, we developed these software about 5-6 years ago, and we put a lot of energy and thought into this. Number one, we wanted to have a high quality solution, a very robust solution. Number two, these switches are enterprise grade switches. They are not the types of switches that you can buy at your local retail shop. These are non-blocking, full line rate L2, L3 switches. Operational efficiency. This is something we will never be finished with. Every software release we put out, we improve on our operational efficiency. Our goal is to make these switches easy to use. So easy to deploy, easy to configure, easy to maintain, and easy to troubleshoot. Security, so highly secure. We have a long list of security features in our switches. The feature I mentioned to you a little while ago, PBA definitely adds an extra layer of security for these switches. The next little bullet here, I'm reading down the left-hand side of the screen. So the network management platform that we have, it's CN Maestro. You can run that on-premise or in the cloud. I've mentioned this before. I just now mentioned it, and I'm going to mention it again. CN Maestro is a very important component of our solution, a really nice network management solution that enables you to manage not just one of your switches, but all of your switches. Not just all your switches, but all of your Cambium devices with that one pane of glass. So everything that I've mentioned so far, it all comes with the base price of the switch. So we really do have a best-in-class total cost of ownership. Features I mentioned are included. We have a very long warranty that's included as well. 5 years on our EX switches and 3 years on our TX switches. So you get all that for the one low base price. It really does give you a best-in-class total cost of ownership. Okay, this next chart is kind of an eye chart. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but it's a good reference chart for all of our existing switches. You know, we have 12 of the EX switches and 5 of the TX switches. So all 17 switches are listed here with all the major attributes listed so you can easily compare. So PBA, I've mentioned PBA a couple times already, and why have I mentioned it? Why am I making a big deal out of PBA? So in today's Ethernet switching market, it's a very mature market, 20 plus years old. And Cambium, we've been in this market for 4 years now, so we're a relatively new player. It's hard to differentiate yourself from the rest of this mature Ethernet switching market. You know, if you look at a list of L2 features from any one of the vendors, you know, Cisco or Aruba or any of the vendors out there, or Cambium Networks, you're going to see the same list of L2 features. The same thing for L3 features, the same thing for security features. Management may differ a little bit, and that's where we look really good. Our CN Maestro solution is awesome. But PBA, a feature that we have that I'm going to talk to you about is unique. It is a differentiator for us as compared to other vendors. So PBA is a big topic for us. Customers that use it love it, and they'll buy more switches just because of it. Analysts have started to take note of PBA. I can spend hours talking just about PBA, but for today's presentation, I'm just going to do a couple of slides, quick overview for you. So what does it actually do for you? So PBA, policy-based automation, allows you, the network administrator, to develop a policy for your network for a type of device. So let's say you want to develop a policy for video surveillance cameras. Well, when you plug a video surveillance camera into a switch, there's configuration that needs to happen. You need to put that port, you need to create a VLAN, put that port as a member of that VLAN. You need to make the uplink port a member of that VLAN. There's security configuration that you need to take care of, QoS configuration, and a lot of other miscellaneous configuration as well. So when you plug that video surveillance camera in, how do you automate that, right? Well, this PBA will detect it and then apply a configuration to the switch and to the port. So what it does for you is it automates the adds, moves, and changes of the network devices that you connect into the network. So I mentioned video surveillance cameras. You can develop another policy for Wi-Fi access points, another policy for your printers, so on and so forth. So you need one policy per type of device, and when you plug that device into the switch, it automates the configuration. Not only does it automate the configuration for that device, but when you remove the device from the switch, it automatically cleans up that configuration, which is potentially more important than the auto configuration itself. It keeps your configuration file simple, easy to maintain. It also, from a security point of view, doesn't leave configuration up and running on a port, leaving VLANs dangling on an unused port where you could maliciously plug in another device and get access to potentially sensitive VLANs. Okay, so automates the adds, moves, and changes. And it automates this process, so it eliminates the error-prone and time-consuming manual configuration. Every port is treated equally, right? You don't have to pre-configure ports differently. You plug this device, video surveillance camera from my example, you plug it into any port of any switch, the switch will auto-detect it and auto-apply the configuration that is associated with that policy. Now, from a security point of view, this is great. You don't accidentally put that device onto the wrong segment or the wrong VLAN. We auto-detect that device and we automatically put it on the correct VLAN according to that policy. So overall, what does PBA do for you? It reduces the expenses required to deploy and manage your network. I'm not saying that you don't need an IT staff. Your IT staff is super, super busy. This is one less thing, a big thing that they no longer have to worry about. So a little bit about how PBA works. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So policies are created, as I mentioned, to match different types of devices. If you have video surveillance cameras, that could be one policy. Or let's say you have two different types of video surveillance cameras. You could have one policy for both, or you could have one policy for each type of video surveillance camera. Policies can be created via any management interface that I mentioned. So we support a very comprehensive COI. It's a Cisco-like syntax. We support a very user-friendly web GUI. All of our features are instrumented with an SNMP interface, or what we recommend is cnMaestro. Since cnMaestro is a network management solution, if you create a policy in cnMaestro, it will push that policy down to every switch in your network. And so this policy now exists on every switch. These policies have two components. The first component is, how do you detect the device? So when you plug a device into our switch, we gather as much information as we can. We use multiple ways to do that. So there's two ways that we use to detect the device. You can either specify a MAC address, a specific MAC address, which will match one device, or you can specify a range of MAC addresses, or you can use a MAC address OUI, so you get all the devices from that one vendor. Or now we also support lists of MAC addresses. So you can create a list of 200 MAC addresses, and any device that has a MAC address that is contained in that list will be considered a match for that policy. A second method we use, the first method is MAC addresses. The second method is LLDP, or Link Layer Discovery Protocol. This is the 802.1 AB protocol that is a point-to-point communication of a data packet. That data packet contains a lot of little data snippets with a lot of useful information in it. And we can look at all those little data snippets and use that as a match criteria for the device type as well. Now, once you have detected the device and you determine that this device has been plugged into one of the ports, the second component of the policy is what actions you want to take. So, of course, VLANs is the best example, right? What VLANs do you want, VLAN or VLANs, do you want that port to be a member of for that device? What are your QoS settings, your user priority bits, the port mode, the PoE priority of that port, something simple such as port labeling or the description of that port is actually very, very useful. You know, you can't remember which port your printer is in. So all vendors allow you to enter a port description for a port, but we automate that for you. So not only does it automatically put in the description of that device, it also will automatically remove it when you remove your cable. So when you move your printer from port 5 to port 10, you don't have to remember to go in there and manually remove it from port 5 and add it to port 10. PBA does that for you automatically. So this configuration that I'm talking about, the configuration as a result of these policies is what we consider dynamic configuration. And because it's dynamic, that configuration will automatically be cleaned up if that device is removed from the switch. A very, very useful capability. I'm going to give you one example real quick, and then I'll stop talking about PBA. Once I get going, it's hard to stop. Anyway, when I give a live demo, I might have one video surveillance camera and like one access point, and I'll do the demo. But in a real world environment, it's not just one, right? You have maybe 20 switches, and in my example here, 200 video surveillance cameras and 100 access points. For this example, it's really simple. You only create two policies. You create one for your access points and one for your cameras, and that's all you need, and you're finished. From that point forward, you're ready to deploy your devices, your 300 devices, video surveillance cameras and access points. You connect them in to any port of any switch, you turn around and walk away. There is no manual configuration required. There's no need to log into the switch and do anything at all. Everything happens for you automatically, and it's 100% zero touch. So that was PBA. Let me, perfect timing here. So let me talk a little bit about our roadmap. And this is probably the most exciting part of this presentation. I'm talking about some new products that we have coming out and very soon, actually. So This slide here is one of my favorite slides, and it represents the enterprise edge or the access layer of your network. And that market is a huge market. I'm not talking about the huge data center market, that's gigantic. I'm not talking about core switches. I'm not talking about aggregation switches. Edge switches alone have a market of about $10 billion. So how does a company like Cambium Networks go after that market? Well, we don't go after it with just one switch. We have a few different switches, a few different series of switches that we can use. And other vendors do the same thing. So on this slide here on the right, this graph, you know, we have the CN Matrix series, the 1K. We have the CN Matrix 2K series. And then what I'm going to start talking about is the CN Matrix EX 3K series. And what are the differences between the 1K, the 2K, and the 3K? Well, the obvious difference is price, and the other difference is the capabilities and features. Now, how do we differentiate between the EX1K and the 2K? It's very, very important to be able to stand in front of a customer or partner and explain exactly what the difference is and why do you need to pay a little bit extra for that difference. Or the same thing between the 2K and the 3K. It's very important to be able to very, very clearly communicate the differences between those two series of switches. So let me touch on that. The first is the EX2K. Now this is the sweet spot of this enterprise access layer. It's a very comprehensive list of features, very competitively priced, and this is our sweet spot. We will sell more of these switches than any of the 1K or 2K. But when would a customer want to move to the 1K or up to the 3K? Well, some customers, they don't care about all the features, all the fancy features, but they still want a high quality enterprise grade switch. And that's where the EX1K comes in. It's price driven and features are secondary. But anyway, our EX1K, we're shipping it today. It's about half the list price of the EX2K. So this is the EX1K, the EX2K, and this is what we're shipping today, and this is what we've been shipping for the last several years. And then this year in 2023 is when we start delivering the 3K. So the 3K is what? Well, on the graph, it's up and to the right. So it means it's going to cost a little bit more and you're going to get a few more features. So what features are you going to get? Well, number one on my list here is a dual removable power supply. There is a percentage of customers out there that won't even consider the switch if it doesn't have dual removable power supplies. It's a big market that Cambium cannot participate in today, but we can now with the EX3K. So dual removable power supply is very, very important. And so this redundancy, yeah, if a power supply fails, the switch stays up and operational, no problem. Your network does not go down. But power supplies don't fail very often. The reason why you have dual power supplies is for dual sources. So you can plug each of the two power supplies into different sources in your scenario, in your deployment. So different circuits in your building. So it's common for a circuit to blow, but it's not too common for a power supply to fail. But anyway, you plug it into two different circuits. If one circuit goes down, no problem. Your switch stays fully up and fully operational. The second bullet I have here is about PUE, about how much PUE power is available on each port. 99% of the switches out there today support 802.3 AF8T, which gives you as much as 30 watts per port. Well, with the new standards out there, 802.3 BT, you can support up to 90 watts. We're supporting 60 watts on these switches. And it's not really about needing 60 watts. It's about needing more than 30. So there's some advanced devices out there. Video surveillance cameras are a good example. Some of these cameras have internal heaters, internal coolers. They have pan and zoom mechanical movement. So this can cause the device to want to draw more than 30 watts. So the 60 watts will be perfect for these types of devices. Also, advanced access points. Some of the higher end Wi-Fi access points will need more than 30 watts as well. Again, they don't need 60, but they do need more than 30. So these 3K switches will have a high density of these ports that have 60 watt capability. My third bullet, so multi-gig ports, 2.5 gig. So some of the advanced access points today can use over 1 gig of traffic. So 2.5 gig is also something that is needed in more advanced networks, more advanced deployments. Maybe you don't need them on every port, but for example, plugging a printer into your switch does not need 2.5 gig. Anyway, higher density number of multi-gig ports. Also on the EX3K, we're using a new architecture, a new, more advanced architecture. So you're still going to get your line rate, non-blocking L2 and L3 switching, but we're going to be able to support more advanced features as well. Also, the existing features that we already support today, we can scale up the table sizes for those features. So more routes, more IGMP groups, more MAC addresses, that type of thing. Also listed here, it's branded as the EX3K, but maybe it doesn't belong on this slide because it's not an edge switch. But we are coming out with fiber aggregation switches as well for the distribution layer. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the 3K switches that are coming out. So what's the status of our program? Well, we have 2 switches coming up soon, the EX3028R-P and the EX3052R-P. So I have little red underlines of the 3, so this is the new EX3K. And then also the R means it has removable power supplies. Anyway, these 2 switches has 24 and 48 access ports, very typical. These are 1 gig access ports. In addition, we have 4 10 gig fiber uplink ports, so SFP plus ports. These switches are, of course, enterprise grade L2, L3 switching, non-blocking at line rate. We are in beta now, beta testing. So these switches are in the final stages being tested with customers. In fact, we just sent out the switches this week. We are in some internal milestones. So we go into mass production in June on these switches. The capability. So I've listed this on the previous slide, so I'll go through this quickly. But number 1, for sure, dual removable redundant power supplies. Now, the power supplies that we use are the power supplies that we already have on our price lists. We use these power supplies for our TX switches, and we have 6 of them, AC and DC. I'll talk more about them later. We do support up to 60 watts of PoE power. On our 24-port switch, we support 12 of those 24 ports supports up to 60 watts of power. And on the 48-port switch, 24 of those 48 ports support up to 60 watts of power. And then I mentioned the advanced silicon. We have advanced silicon internally that enables us to do support larger table sizes and more advanced features. Here's a quick summary. So the 2 switches that I just talked about going into mass production towards the end of June, those are the first 2 rows in this table that I have here. So it's a 24-port and a 48-port with 4 10 gig uplinks. Check, it has the dual removable power supplies. Check, it has the PoE plus, some people call it, up to 60 watts of power. It has the advanced silicon. But these first 2 switches that we're shipping in June, they do not have multi-gig support. If you go to the next 2 switches, the last 2 switches in this table, that's where we add in the multi-gig support. So it has everything else, dual removable power supplies, 60 watts of PoE power per port, advanced silicon, advanced capabilities. Now, one thing that's interesting is on the 24-port switch, instead of having 4 fiber uplinks, it has 6 fiber uplinks. Now, these are our 4 access switches, a part of the 3K family. We also have a fiber distribution switch coming out. This is our EX3024F. People refer to it as different things: fiber distribution, fiber aggregation. Some people call it a core switch. but this is going to have a very simple configuration: 24 ports, a 10 gig SFP plus capability. Now, what about power supplies? This is an aggregation switch. Very important that you have dual power supplies. We do have dual power supplies, and these power supplies are small because this is not a PoE switch. It's an all fiber switch. So these power supplies are not removable. They are internal, so it accomplishes the goal of having dual power supplies. It allows you to plug these dual power supplies into two different sources, two different circuits in your building. So in case one circuit goes down. Now this EX3024 switch also has very advanced silicon in it, so we will be able to support some very advanced features and capabilities. I have a quick little view of that on the next slide. I won't go through all these features, but these are kind of the new features and capabilities that we will be adding to these EX3K switches. I won't go through this. In the middle of the page here is MLAG. That's a feature that I'm actually very excited about. It's for the aggregation switch. It enables you to dual home your edge switches into two different aggregation switches, so that if one of your aggregation switch fails, you don't lose all the edge switches that are plugged into that aggregation switch. It's a great feature. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to do a quick overview of the accessories, then we can jump into Q&A. So I mentioned our removable power supplies. So we use CRPS power supplies, which is a industry standard format. We have 6 power supplies, and as I mentioned before, these can be used on our TX2K switches, or they can be used on our new EX3K switches. And we have 6 of them. It's important to note that these power supplies do not come with the switch. Since there's 6, we sell them as an accessory. So you would buy the power supply that you need. So we have 3 AC versions and we have 3 DC versions. And both AC and DC, they come in either 600 watts, 930 watts, or 1200 watts. So more than enough power that you might need for PoE. Depending on the types of devices you plug in will dictate how much power you need. The AC versions, it's important to note, they don't come with a power cord. So wherever you live in the world, you'll buy a local power cord for that. For the DC versions, it does come with DC cables. They're very nice, heavy-duty cables that can handle this large amount of current. So these are 3-meter pigtail terminated connector cables. These 6 power supplies are very, very nice. The DC supplies are fully isolated, so you can use either positive or negative input. The next accessory is our transceivers. So I keep talking about our switches. They have fiber uplink ports. Well, what kind of transceiver or what kind of SFP module are you going to buy? Well, at Cambium, we allow you to buy the transceivers from any vendor you want. That's not true with everyone. Some of the vendors out there, they require you to buy transceivers from them. Anyway, you can use any transceiver vendor you want, although we highly recommend you buy from a vendor that you trust. There are some pretty cheap SFPs out there, or you can buy them from us. We sell SFP modules that have been thoroughly tested and pretty competitively priced as well. Okay, so that's my presentation for today. Julie, I'm going to hand this back over to you, and we can go through the Q&A.
Thank you, John, very much for that wonderful presentation. And I do have a few questions for you here. Let's get started with the first one. Audience member asks, why is there dual power supply on the enterprise edge? If you covered this, I'm sorry I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, no problem. So dual power supplies are for, I'm not sure what terminology to use, but I'll say for higher end customers. Some customers, they simply will not consider a switch if it doesn't have dual power supplies. And again, I'm sorry to be repetitive. You know, the reason why you want dual power supplies is not because one might fail. It's because you want to plug them into two different sources in your deployment in the building. So, you know, one's power cord will be plugged into one circuit, and another power cord will be plugged into another circuit. So why would you want this on the edge of your network? Oh, simply because you don't want to lose that switch. You know, if it's a single power supply, it's plugged into a circuit, circuit breaker breaks, that switch goes out, the switch goes down, all the users, all the devices connected to that switch lose connectivity to the network.
Thank you for that, John. Next question here regarding warranties. You did touch on it. Can you talk a little bit more about warranties and perhaps touch on returns a little bit?
Sure. I always get this mixed up, but we have we call it a limited lifetime a warranty on these EX switches. I spent most of the day talking about the EX switches. Those are meant for indoor enterprise deployments, and we have a 5-year warranty on that. Let's see. Yeah, so it's a 5-year warranty that comes with the base price of the switch. That is not extra. On the TX switches, it comes with a 3-year warranty. And as far as returns, it does cover returns. I do believe you can buy extra customer care support on top of this. These warranties cover your basic Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day of support. If you want 24/7, I think that's another customer support package that you can buy. And you can buy them in either 1 year, 3 year, or 5-year increments.
Excellent, thank you. We always like to know about how we can get that type of support. Next question, regarding tech support and alike, could we or could anyone go to your website and start off with getting either, you know, mid or even high level tech support?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a documentation point of view, we have all of our data sheets online and our user manuals online. And we have, you know, quick config guides and basic configuration guides. You know, for every one of our switches, we come out with a new a basic configuration guide, and they're very good. For detailed technical support, I would start with the user's guide. The user guide talks about every feature. It talks about why the feature is useful, how to use it, how to configure it, that type of thing. For troubleshooting, you can start there. And then if you're still having trouble, you definitely use our support line for sure. Call in for help. The problems will be escalated actually directly to my team, unless they're simple, easy problems. And we really enjoy working directly with the customers. So whenever we can, it's a learning experience for us as well as the customer.
Excellent, thank you, John. Next question here for you. Say if some type of project manager needs to buy Cambium equipment for a small or a medium office situation, can you help them with everything that they would need?
Yeah, absolutely. And in that situation, I would definitely recommend working with one of our partners. You know, we have a very, very large number of partners spread across globally. And that partner will be able to help you with all your Cambium needs and whatever other needs that you have to make it a complete comprehensive deployment.
Excellent. Would that include, for example, even a small, medium, or large office campus where there's a lot of offices?
Oh, yeah, that's actually would be a perfect deployment for us. That's exactly what we do on a regular basis.
Excellent. So that's kind of, that's a lot more complicated, a lot more equipment. And obviously, because we're talking about a lot of people, because I know I've worked in places where it was a huge campus. There was, you know, like 12 buildings, a lot of people in each building and that sort of thing. So Cambium could handle something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We do that on a regular basis. So we probably put, okay, let's use an example of a small dentist office that has 5 employees. We
Uh-huh.
support that. We support medium deployments, and then we also support large deployments of what you just described. And we probably do more of the medium and large deployments than we do of the very, very small deployments. But we cover it all.
Excellent. John, thank you so much for being with Microcom today. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you for answering all of those questions for us. And thanks to everyone in our audience for attending today. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to review any of the products mentioned or shown today, please note that we always record our webinar presentations, and it will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again. Thank you, John. Until next time, everybody, appreciate your participation. And John, thank you. And I will be touching base so that we can do another Cambium webinar in the near future.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thank you everyone for your time today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, John. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.